call to order. We have a quorum. We do. Approval of the minutes of May 25th, 2000.
Public comment.
Oh, am I used to that? No public comments. Okay.
That's not a fear.
Okay. Next, approval of minutes of the May 25th, 2022 annual meeting. We have a motion. Seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Excuse me. Next is discussion regarding resolution thanking Judith Morse for her distinguished public service. Madam Director, that's something to say.
Yeah. Yes, as you know, Judy served with us and she was an absolutely wonderful chair of the board and board member before that. She stepped up when Steve Wallach stepped away and to serve as chair. And Daryl, I thought you did a great job last month. I can't do any better to say how wonderful she was. I certainly appreciated her as a board member, as chair, and really as a friend as well. She was a very strong ally for us. She was very helpful with her finance background, and we'll miss her very much. We just wanted to send her a resolution thanking her.
Is there we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Sorry.
Discussion. Is there anything else you can send her, like here, besides the resolution? Like, I don't know, it's something. I mean,
Absolutely.
like a paper, something with the.
Absolutely.
I think that. That's
Something,
my suggestion.
something frameable.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that all right?
Absolutely.
I think that's very nice.
Thank you. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Next is legislative bill to extend time for payment of tolls.
So I really put this on here, Mr. Chair, for discussion purposes. And I just wanted to make the board aware of an issue. And that is that under our current statutory scheme, our fees that attach to tolls that aren't paid when they are incurred by Easy Pass or when they're incurred by bill by mail, our structure of fees doesn't allow for a lot of time for payment of the fee by mail before you incur the first $40 fee. Currently, it's 14 days. And while this may sound counterintuitive in terms of financing for the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, we would like to extend the 14 days to 30 days because most bills that people have to pay when they receive them in the mail have more time than 14 days, and 30 days is really the standard in the industry. So, and as I say, while it sounds like, well, money you could have had here, at 14 days, you won't have until the 30-day mark. Well, that's true. The staff down in the tolling operations spends an awful lot of time on the phone with customers who just weren't home for 2 weeks. They were on vacation. They were somewhere else. The bill fell to the bottom of the pile, and by the time they found it, it was the 15th or 16th or 17th day. And so we spent a lot of time on the phone. So I did pursue the possibility of this session having the General Assembly amend that 14 days to 30 days, which is, again, we say is a win-win for the customers, win for us in terms of productivity of staff. I don't think it will happen this session, since we know that they're voting on the budget today, so in the House. So I don't think that it will get in. But I have let the legislators know that we're pursuing this, that we would like consideration of this, and I wanted the board to know in case the board wanted to weigh in on the subject. But we probably now will have until next January before we have to talk.
Questions, discussion?
Yes, it's logical. So,
All right, so you'll just proceed with that.
I will.
Thank you. Next item is extension of contract 11-13 Easy Pass back office services.
We are seeking a 12-month extension on the Easy Pass current back office support services with Convocus. This will allow us to design and implement our new back office. The pricing that they provide us is a 5% cost of living increase on the existing prices from about 10 years ago to this contract. So it's pretty decent. And we have the option to stop this contract, stop paying this one and start paying the new one if it is completed prior to 12 months.
The 5% increase you feel is fair?
Yes.
When I first looked at it, I thought that there's no administrative cost for them to extend it. And sometimes that's built into the previous original billing. That's why I was questioning the need for it.
But the cost of living was higher than, the increase, the cost of living was higher, so 5%.
No, I get it. Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah.
Further questions? Discussion? Hearing none, a motion to approve. By Karen, second by Peter, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thanks, Katie. Next item on the agenda is pre-authorization for WSP Task Force Phase 2 final design and bid phase services for all electronic polling conversions. Eric?
Yeah, thank you. So almost a year ago, I brought before the board a task order for approval to WSP for designing construction phase services for the temporary implementation that was put out front, and then the conceptual design of the final phase of the final design. They're about ready to submit the conceptual design for this project, and in the meantime, we've started to negotiate the final design and bid phase for the final project, I should say, up front. What I'd like to do is I'd like to keep them working, and I'd like to get a real $50,000 towards this new task order while we finish negotiations. The backup that I included was at the time of the preparation board package, the current draft task order that is out there that we're looking at. This has already changed because, again, we're negotiating and we're refining things. What won't change are the project limits. And what this initial $50,000 will help with is getting the geotechnical investigation started out front, where the project will be going soil testing and all that. So, I mean, that part of the project is not going to change. So that's what we'd like to get some pre-approval seed money basically for, so we can keep this rolling. Then once this is finalize the tax order and fee, we'll bring that forward for final approval.
Questions, Peter?
I like the concept because that keeps everybody working, and you know that the task order is going to be way more than that.
Yeah.
Especially the need to do the soils borings and all that. The one question I did have was in the backup. It shows the removal and replacement of structure E. That's the big bridge that's over here, and I question that.
That's a part that's already changed. So that part now, but because we had done some conceptual cost estimating, and that part of the project started to become quite costly. We refined it to a rehab of the bridge, basically a hybrid demolition of the deck, similar to what we've done on Health. Some beam work, some abutment work, and that has brought the cost down considerably, and that part already been modified since this was
Yeah,
included
if
in
you notice in the document that was given us, it showed the removal and replacement of the superstructure on there. And it'd be very difficult to do, very costly, and very disruptive traffic-wise and everything else. So I was questioning that, and Eric has already answered that. It's great.
Yeah.
But I like the concept of a little upfront money to keep the project
Keep
going.
it going.
Yeah.
Good job, great job.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Peter?
No,
We have a motion, do we have a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Always, yeah, nice job, Eric, thank you. Next item on the agenda is a purchase order for parking lot sealing and striping.
Yeah, I'll take that one again.
Yes.
So we solicited for some quotes for the state MPA 380, number 381, to get some work done to the parking lot, both out here from the administration building and also behind the maintenance building. The asphalt has quite a few cracks, especially out in here. It's in good shape, but if we don't seal the cracks in the asphalt, it will just deteriorate quicker. We'd like to get the parking lot sealed We also looked at seal coating initially, that turned out to be costly, and quite frankly, seal coating is really nothing. So I opted to leave that out of the project. So we'd like to get the sealing done, and we'd like to restripe out here, striping's fading, and we're gonna restripe behind maintenance, to allow the parking of larger vehicles, it's actually too small, so when we configure the striping behind maintenance. So the two quotes we received through the NPA were $5,840 from Oak Hill Farm LLC, and then $7,425 from International Paving Corporation. So we'd like to recommend moving forward with a purchase order with East Coast Landscaping, with Oak Hill Farm, East Coast Landscaping actually client, so.
Discussion?
Yeah, so the standards, I noticed on one quote, the one that you didn't select, used all the DOT standards in terms of the specification for the paint and the reflector beads and all that. They're both the same standard in terms of what they're gonna provide?
They'll both do the same, yeah, they'll use the same type of striping, yeah. You talk.
Right.
You know, he initially had seal coating baked into his number, we had to have him break that out, because we anticipated taking that out of the project, so we finally.
But it meets, the one that you selected meets the same standards that were referenced there?
Yeah.
Good. So do I have a motion to approve the purchase order with Oak Hill Farm LLC for the amount of $5,840, not to exceed $5,840? Motion by Peter, seconded by Karen. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thanks, Eric. You're up again.
All right. On-call electrical services contract selection, this is more a discussion item, so we, in the, I think it was 2015 was the last time we had an on-call electrical contract. It was with Audette, and EW Audette is two Audette contractors, so this one was EW Audette. It had expired recently, so we decided to go back out and get some on-call electrical contractors on board again. We use them quite frequently. We have, you know, power issues on the bridges, power issues here at the facility. I gave an example earlier to one of the board members where during a hurricane, for example, we were able to get our on-call electrical contractor out to work on a transfer switch that was active, and he came out during the hurricane. So I mean, having these contracts is critical to keep this place operational. So we went out and solicited proposals publicly for just general on-call services for, it was open solicitation, it was not through the state NPA. We received 3 proposals, one from Arden Engineering Constructors, one from EW Audette, who was the previous on-call, and one from AM Electric LLC. Our collecting committee reviewed all of them, they all qualified, and they all provided a schedule for 5 years. So they gave us a bill of basically, their rates for all of the different journeyman, apprentice, they gave us rates for equipment. It was all spelled out on a 5-year calendar, and then what we're gonna move forward with is a 5-year on-call contract. So we decided to select all 3. It's really just a matter of information for.
Thank you very much. Sure. Questions? Okay, next up is Jeff.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
On an annual basis, we're required underneath our master indenture to set a renewal and replacement fund reserve. Last year, we increased it from what was roughly 1.8 million to $20.4 million. We're recommending to maintain the $20.4 million. Just to give you some insight of where that number actually comes from, in essence, it's our capital. The amount of capital we're going to spend this year, which is about $12.9 million, plus another $7.5 million of an insurance reserve. We have a $10 million deductible underneath our bridge. So if we were to have a catastrophic event, for us to come up with $10 million would be very difficult. But if it's sitting in this reserve fund, it allows us to at least access 7.5 that very quickly.
That $10 million figure, that's cool.
It is for large bridge structures, because when you have an event, it's typically a big event.
Right. right, but you know, so I was just.
Yeah, so in our upcoming renewals, which are August 1st, our broker will be laying out what other, and they do have other clients who do have bridges. So we always look at what our limits are and how they compare to others to make sure that we're not outside
Right,
any type of range. They are looking to potentially, I've asked them to basically, I'd like a low deductible, but not a higher premium. So they'll be working with the vendor on that because that frees up the reserve.
yeah, exactly.
So the recommendation is to set that at the 20,443.
Questions?
Well, the 10 million looks pretty small compared to what the actual insurance covers. The number,
Right.
there's the coverage, so that makes sense. Yeah.
My only comment about this is that for years, that number remained the same.
Yep.
And it wasn't until this team was in place that we started to look at this number and say, where did this number come from? And realize that the number needed to be looked at every year. Our bond covenants require that the engineer be involved, and obviously the CFO, in setting that number. So now we're very careful to set that number every year, make sure it's the right number.
Terrific. Do we need to read the resolution? We can just approve it, right?
Yeah.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution as submitted regarding the established renewal and replacement fund requirements? Motion by Peter, second by Karen, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Next is an agreement with union addressing wage healthcare reopener CBA 2020-23.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're now in the last year of our contract with the union. So we'll be negotiating a new contract next year, but we had wage opener provisions in the second and third years. They have been taking rather modest increases due to COVID and due to the fact that we've been down in toll revenue and down in gas tax revenue. So they've been taking 1% in 20. They took 1%, 1.25%, I believe, in January of 21. So now we have negotiated with them. We think this is a fair and reasonable concept of 2.5% for as of July 1. And then they'll get 1.25 January 1 if we meet our benchmarks on traffic and revenue. At 1.25 is really 0.625 because it's only for half the year. And then they'll get another 1.25 or 0.625 since it's only half if we meet other traffic and revenue benchmarks. The idea is to make sure we have the money to pay these increases. That's why we have approached the union to partner with us in making certain that the money is available. If the traffic, if the revenue is there, then we can pay these increases, and they have agreed to that. What I did put in the summary, and I do want you to know, is that we did take into consideration that the CPI increase this year was, I guess I can say, unusually high. And so they are each member of the bargaining unit is receiving $2,500 as an acknowledgement of the fact that that's been the case, that they had this unusual increase in gas and other living expenses, and so obviously they wanted much more than that, but that's what we agreed.
How many members of the bargaining unit?
How many? About 20?
24?
Yeah, right around there.
Further questions? And, well, that was a good job by you. Do I have a motion to approve the agreement regarding the wage and healthcare CBA for 2020 through 2023? Motion by Darrell, by Karen, discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. All the ayes have it. Next, annual budget.
Good morning again. I'm going to go through this rather quickly because I did put a lot of information in here. But, please, if you have any questions related to my assumptions, please feel free to ask. I'd like to jump to page 3, which is the first page of the material budget assumptions, if that's okay with you. Total revenue, $38 million. Our total revenue of $21.6 million is actually slightly above our fiscal year 2019. So even though we're projecting that our traffic will not be there, we are budgeting that we will actually meet, if not exceed, pre-COVID levels. So that's great news. I like to think that we're finally back. Gas tax, we get that from the Department of Revenue, from their projections. It's $16.1 million. And then we have some other revenue, excuse me, transponder revenue and some other fees, statement fees and whatnot, which is based on historical collections. So revenue of $38 million. On the next page is the further assumptions, mostly on the operating expense side. Total operating expenses is $13.8 million. Of that, wages is $4.7 million, or about 34% of our operating expenses. Thank you for passing the last vote, because the budget includes the assumptions that Lori just laid out and was approved. I've also assumed a 4% increase for non-union effective July 1st. I've assumed all positions are filled effective July 1st. Again, that's a conservative approach. We know we will always have open positions. And then I've assumed some painters who work on maintenance projects. Typically, they'll work on capital projects, so we can capitalize them. But frankly, also using them for 6 months out of the year working on maintenance projects. Those we cannot capitalize. On the health, dental, life, I've assumed a 5% increase as of January 1st. That's when our renewal is effective. On the 401k, I've also assumed that all eligible employees are matched at 5% and assume that all employees earn the 3.5%. Again, due to turnover and because some people don't put in the full 5%, this is a little bit conservative. So we know odds are at the end of the year, we won't spend the whole $315,000. I'm just going to jump down to, excuse me, contractual services of $1.4 million. That's about 10% of our operating expenses. I have included the $138,000 for the Rhode Island State Police. We have not had that in the past, so this is a new expense that we will have for the next 3 years. I've included the increases for both CAPS and Amovis. That's our back office and our roadside that Katie manages. So I've included those costs in the budget. Legal fees, I've set at $3,000 per month. I only bring that up because last year in the budget, we had a big number for legal fees because of the Salas case that was subsequently settled. So from budget to budget, you're going to see a big decrease in that line item, and it's as a result of the legal fees. On the other supplies, again, which is about $1.4 million or 10%, I've included $600,000 for postage. I've increased the costs associated with the credit card fees. Again, this is all as a result of bill by mail and those higher revenues. So we have to have the offsetting some higher operating expenses. I have included a $20,000 payment for the town of Jamestown. Historically, that has been $30,000. But we work with them to reduce that to $20,000. Insurance, $1.6 million, or about 11% of our operating expenses. I've included our ranges from 1% to 15% for our premiums. Last year, the renewal came in very strong. We were pretty much able to hold the line. That's going to be our goal this year. We're working with the broker to make sure that happens. It's going to be a little bit difficult in some of our lines, like our cybersecurity coverage. 2 years ago when I came in, we were able to increase the limit by $1 million to $2 million, but that coverage is now getting very expensive. It's up by 40 to 50% in the industry, but again, our goal is to keep that flat. Repairs and maintenance, about $1 million. I have included some costs associated with the escalating fuel prices and bridge inspections. That's provided by Eric. I've got a backup sheet that we can go through if you'd like. And then finally, the transponder expense. I've just assumed the $7 per transponder cost.
Quick question.
Yes.
What's the payment to Jamestown for the town?
I think a lot of people term it a pilot type program. I believe, hopefully I'm not speaking out of.
It's never been called.
I know,
that,
that's why
but, there has traditionally been a payment, for the enhanced or increased use of town services, that happens because we are here. But it's kind of been a traditional thing, but we did take it up with the town in the last time and say we're going to be phasing this out.
Right.
Makes sense.
So in the next year's budget, it'll be 10,000, the budget after that will be 0. Any other questions? Okay. On the next page, just a comparison, current year budget to last year's budget, and then to fiscal year 19. I'm not showing 21 or 20 because those were COVID years, so it makes the analysis very difficult. But if you compare it versus 2019, you can see that our total revenue is basically flat, as I mentioned before, so we're back. The gas tax, again, that's done by a projection, it's down by roughly a little over $1 million. And so our total revenue, when you look at the 38 million versus this year's budget of 34 million, it's up $4 million. So we feel confident that, unless there's some macro events that happen, we're pretty confident that we can hit this $38 million in revenue. On the operating expense line, the one thing I just want to point out is the personnel services. When you compare the $6.1 million for this budget versus roughly the 5.7 million from 2019, yes, it's a 7% increase. But when you look at that from a compounded annual growth rate, it's only growing 1.7%. So this takes into account the 1% that Lori mentioned and the additional 1%, and then plus the budgeted numbers at the 2.5. So we've been doing a pretty good job, I think, of holding the line on the personnel expenses, which again, account for 34% of our total operating expenses. The contractual services, if I could just go down 2 lines, that number is 1.4 million versus the 1,638,000, the 15% decrease. Again, that is a result of the reduction in the legal fees that I mentioned earlier. Bridge inspections, it's up over 2019 by $1 million. Again, that's just a timing issue. Eric and I have a pretty good process set up where we know the timing associated with all of our bridge inspections and when they begin, when they're due, so we can cash flow that out. And I have that in as backup as well. So overall, non-personnel services is up from the 6.4 million to the almost $7 million. So of that $1.2 million variance, $1 million of that is related to the inspections. So that's just a timing issue. And one last thing I'd like to point out is on the operating profit, the 24,195,000. If you then subtract out the interest expense, which is 2 lines down, the 7,859,000, that's really what our cash flow is. So if you take the 24 million less the 8 million roughly of interest expense, we're throwing off cash flow at $16.2 million. So it's pretty solid. And if there aren't any questions, I'll jump to the next page. On the bridge inspections, first of all, I'd like to apologize up top. It talks about revenue. Oh no, so yours was updated, good, okay. So you did receive the updated one. So here it is at almost $1.8 million. The total budget was 1,774,000, but the budget for this year is the 1,771, and that's because Evans Ave, where we have a start date of April 16th and a due date of August 14th, we're spending a little bit of money this fiscal year, so that's the $3,000 missing between those 2 numbers that you see on the slide. Director Gianaris, do you have any questions for Eric?
No, that was pretty straightforward.
Okay, all right.
I could come up with one. If you want.
I was anticipating one. And on the last page is our capital budget. So again, this is the $12.9 million in total. You can see it broken out by department. The biggest ones is in tolling operations. This is where you're seeing the back office and also the roadside implementation. I just want to make sure that as I go through this with you rather quickly. This is from a cash flow perspective. So the back office integration, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but let's just say the total is $2.2 million. What I've included in this year's capital plan is $950,000. So I don't want you to think that these are the total capital costs for the project. It's the capital costs that we will incur this year. On the engineering side, the all electronic tolling, you see the roughly $5 million we have in this year's budget. That total project cost is $12 million. So that's just an example. So the $12.9 million plus the insurance reserve is what gets us back to that renewal and replacement fund reserve that we set up on an annual basis.
I think your best example would be Mount Hope Bridge.
Oh, yeah, that's very good. Yeah, we have $1 million in there, and we know it's a $35 million project.
Right.
Any questions I can?
Questions?
Nice summary, thank you.
Hearing none, need to vote on that, correct? Well, motion by Darrell, seconded by Karen, Peter, discussion, hearing none, all those in favor, by saying aye. Opposed, the ayes have it. Thank you. Good job. Next, capital project staff report.
Thank you. The biggest update that I'll have on this one is related to Port Bridge Pier 5W, the bearing removal and replacement project actually showing first. You had previously authorized a construction contract with Cardi at the last board meeting, and so we prioritized it based on a field visit where Cardi went out and measured the bearings, and our engineer from WSP went down on the equipment while they were out there to take a look at the bearings. They hadn't seen them in about a month, and she was concerned that we needed to get shoring in place sooner than later. Within a couple of days, they were mobilized on site and one of the bearings short on Friday. Some of you probably heard about the traffic that was caused, but it was necessary. It was just one of those judgment calls we had to make. And then on the following Monday, they put the shoring under the other bearing. So we are now in a good place with that pier. So if the rock bearing was to ultimately fail or tip over, it will go nowhere because the shoring is built up right under the beams. So that's the biggest update is we got that done much sooner than we anticipated. What's left on the project now is to go out, do a little bit of cleanup on the shoring longer term. They'll be able to eventually jack the bridge using the shoring that's in place, and we slide the jacks right into the shoring, jack it up, and then replace the bearings in a couple of months when the bearings finally commits. That'll be time forward. So good place for that project as we sit right now. I mentioned the ADT conceptual design. That's going to be submitted in the next week or two, and then this project sheet will change to the final design as we towards the final design project, and I'll table all that sheet will be coming to one shortly. On the miscellaneous steel repairs, there's activity ongoing on that. They're getting prepared to make repairs. I've got shop drawing activity going back and forth between the contractor and then we'll get on the bridge safety and video analytics. We actually had several people out on Mount Hope working last night till Frank, you said it was about 1 o'clock. Getting some camera equipment installed, the final equipment to get these cameras online. And as of today, they will be online for Mount Hope, and then in about another week or so, the system will actually be operating from an artificial intelligence perspective, similar to the way it's working on right now. Calibrated, basically tested, adjusted on that bridge. And this will come to a close very shortly as well now. We're just waiting for the report to come out on that one to work the actual second works they did. Still working on the load rating issue on Kingstown. And capital improvement plan update, we should be finalizing that this week. We have a meeting with the financial, what's that, tomorrow?
Yeah.
Tomorrow, yeah. So we'll be wrapping up the capital plan draft, then we'll be able to share that with everybody before we get it final approval. That's it, unless I'm not.
The underwater inspection on the Newport Bridge.
Yes.
Generally, everything came out okay?
Yeah, nothing, nothing surprising came out of it. Jeff Wiggins was out there with them to do the underwater imaging, got a case for how that works. Which they had previously done on Jamestown, in 2016, when they did their underwater inspection on that, it's pretty impressive result.
I'd recommend, just for the board's benefit, if you get a chance, like one of the meetings, share the images that you get from that.
Sure.
Pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
Just amazing what's done now with the inspections.
absolutely.
Yeah. You really see what it looks like underwater.
Thank you. All right, we can
Full of lens.
Right.
Next item, financial reports.
April, year-to-date results continue to be strong like they have been all year long. I won't go through all my notes like I did on the budget. I'll leave that up to you folks since I had this in the package, but let me just cover kind of high level if I may.
Perfect.
Total revenue was higher than budget, and this is all year-to-date, by 15% or $4.2 million. In addition, our operating expenses were lower than budget by 1.6% or 1.6 million or 15%. So overall, our operating profit is up $5.8 million versus budget. Personnel expenses continue to be strong with respect to budget, down almost $1 million or roughly 19%. With respect to our other operating expenses, the contractual services, insurance, repairs and maintenance, bridge inspections are all lower than budget, and our utilities, other supplies and expenses, which those are up primarily due to the additional bill by mail transactions. So you have the postage, the envelopes and whatnot. So you had the higher revenue, you had the higher expenses. And our transponder expenses were higher, but that's only because we were selling more transponders. So you have the expense as well. I guess that's it for versus budget, unless anybody has any specific questions related to my detailed notes. Again, I generally don't cover versus prior year because of COVID. So the analysis kind of comes a little bit funky and it's not really relevant to many ways, but I do have all my notes. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer those for you.
Questions? Good. Thank you. Next.
I'm up again, thank you again. Traffic update, I always provide you with the spaghetti lines, as I call them, on the graph that show that we're getting there. Let's keep our fingers crossed for good weather, and unfortunately, we're hearing about a robust hurricane season, which I'm really hoping is the case, so that that blue line that represents the current year not only meets but crosses through the year of, the 2019 line. We're almost there, and that's great news. Federal funding has been very exciting, very exciting. As we're waiting now for the response on our second raise grant for the money to do the dehumidification of the Mount Hope Bridge. We expect that decision from the federal government early August. We also then submitted under the next round of federal funding that became available under the MEGA program and under the infra program. MEGA, we submitted the Mount Hope Bridge we did MEGA and infra. We submitted a bundled project on the Pell Bridge, which included a dehumidification system for those cables as well. Same situation as Mount Hope, except one is 94 and one is 54. And so we've included that. We included work on painting on the towers. We included decking, completion of the decking work on the Pell, which we get asked about. And there was a few other smaller components to that.
Work on suspender ropes and some of the attachments.
Right. So that's a big one. The Pell, the Mount Hope one we know is 35 million. hoping to get 25 and match with 10. There are other programs that don't require that match. We've got our irons in the fire. The Pell Bridge program is one, I always get this number,
38.
138 million for these bundled projects. So we took a breath and said, well, we've got these in, let's now wait and see. We think on the mega and infra, we'll know early September, I think the date is. And then what came down the pipe is the Bridge Investment Program, which just came out really just a matter of days ago. And frankly, it's got our name on it. It really is the program meant for these projects that we're contemplating. So, we've been encouraged at state and federal levels to get working. We are working. Compete Rhode Island, which is a conglomerate of private companies that's gotten together and offered services. They are going to provide us with grant writers. They said, use them to your heart's content. Use them, no matter, you incur the hours working with them. They hope to help us take this over the finish line. So we'll be submitting our projects again through the Bridge Investment Program. There's a small program and a large program. So Mount Hope will be in the small and Pell will be in the large program. So we're very excited and getting the cooperation, getting the partnerships that we need to make this happen. And so we're hoping. And speaking of federal funding requests, in the state budget, there is $1 million in the state budget currently that the House will be acting on the budget, I understand today, and then the Senate will get it tomorrow and Saturday. There's $1 million in there for the suicide barriers study. We have to see the final language to see exactly what our obligations are to meet that requirement that the study be done. But that is currently in the budget that's expected to be passed tonight by the House. I should probably say tomorrow morning because it usually goes past midnight. So all of that is good. I wanted to bring up something that we really have not discussed much, and that is Easy Pass operations. As members of the board, I'm sure that sometimes when your friends and family and business colleagues know that you're on the board, they may ask questions about the Easy Pass operations. We have seen, not unexpectedly, a significant increase in bill by mail because if you had no Easy Pass transponder, if you had no cash in your wallet, if you had no credit card in your wallet, there was always the option to go to the collector booths. And believe it or not, we used to hand out little paper IOUs, which Jeff can't wait till those are all wiped out. But yet, if you had nothing to give, you got this little piece of paper and you were supposed to pay your toll. But now there's no one to approach to say, I have none of those three things with which to pay. So the increase in bill by mail transactions has been significant, which explains the 600,000 number that you heard on postage. So it also has burdened our telephone system. We realized it. We said changes need to be made. We all got together. I know I always tell you I've got a great team, and there's no question I do. We all sat down. We said, what do we need to do? The phone company's been in here making changes to the phone system so that we don't get people saying, I call, I'm not getting through. I can't wait that long on the phone. We've looked at the internet system. We also have the option of paying at AAA. We've made improvements in our working with AAA so that getting a transponder or paying your bill is easier. So we've looked at all kinds of things. And you've also heard mention of transponders today, and just so you know what's coming, I was in Portland for 2 days last week, and Katie attended virtually a meeting of the Easy Pass group, which is called the IAG. I think they're now up to 30 states that participate in in Easy Pass. Out west, there are other versions of the tolling system, but IAG is what controls from Maine to Florida and all the way out to Minnesota. They're also porting, I believe, a couple more states already. What we were hearing, there was a lot of talk about transponders. Transponders take up a lot of room in this office. They're boxes of little plastic boxes with a battery in them. Somebody called me the other day and said their transponder literally broke when they removed it from one car to move it into a new car. What's coming is sticker tags and beyond. So the days of the little plastic box that maybe not everybody thinks is the most attractive thing on a really nice car those days, you know, we're seeing that there's gonna be a different method of operation, a different method of capturing that data. So I do want you to know, if you're getting calls from friends and colleagues saying, you know, we're having trouble, we are working on it. We are also looking at all options for the EasyPass walk-in center to make things easier, to improve our customer experience. So you can tell them that, and if there are still questions from your friends and family, you know where to find me, and we're happy, and Katie, we're all happy to help. So that's where we are on that. Other than that, sometimes we do not have, I was just gonna mention the next board meeting, which I believe Marianne is July 13th currently scheduled. We'll let you know if we need that July meeting. Sometimes we don't have a meeting in the summer, so the next meeting would be August 17th. So that's where we're at.
Questions? Discussion?
Hoping for a lot of good luck on all those grant requests.
So are we, and we feel pretty good
I
about it.
know you've been working at it.
Please supporting yourself.
Absolutely, actually, yes, you approached me at an event in East Providence a couple of weeks ago where Compete Rhode Island, this group of companies that's come together to offer grant writing services, engineering services, whatever we need. He actually approached me and said, this is the time.
A lot of folks don't understand how powerful it really is.
Who's that?
We,
Absolutely.
everything we've done with us. We know you also.
The example I've got is the Air National Guard over here is flying all brand new aircraft, because before he got involved, we were flying aircraft older than the pilots. And then he got involved, and we got him off Lockheed Martin assembly line.
And we missed, he's got the juice, so to say.
Doesn't hurt to be chairman of the Senate Armed
No,
Services.
that's-
Well, thank you, to you and your staff. Great job today. One members for coming, so thank you. Motion to adjourn. So
I'll make that.
second discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.